Morning, everybody. My name is Steve Day with Day & Associates Property Management. Welcome to another edition of Property Management Insider. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to interview my insurance agent that I've worked with for over 15 years, Christopher Gordon from State Farm Insurance. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. And we're going to try and give you some pointers and some tips on how to better avoid risk with your buildings, and maybe some concrete things that we can do as your management company to help you avoid large claims somewhere down the road. So, Chris, why don't we start off by telling us a little something about yourself? How'd you get into the insurance business?
Got it. I've been in the insurance business for 30 years, and I've worked for State Farm. And the majority of what we write is home and auto business, including commercial, such apartments and condo associations.
Okay. And how did you get into the business? What brought you in, first of all?
Such a loaded question. I got into the business because I wanted to be able to help others. I wanted to run my own business. I wanted to be able to take care of individuals. And that's the majority of the reason why I got into the business.
What's the biggest claim that you see come across your desk?
The number one claim we're going to see come across our desk is going to be a water claim. And the majority of the water claims out there are going to be leakage and seepage water claims, meaning we've got a small drip in the line and it's created dry rot or mold inside the house. So it's a water claim that's been going on over a period of time versus a sudden and accidental explosion of water, which is a different type of claim. Those are covered under an insurance policy, but leakage and seepage is not.
Most of the water issues that we have are pinhole leaks in copper plumbing. Mm-hmm. They've added something to the water these days, and it's slowly deteriorating. So what's the best recommendation you can offer the owners to guard against that? If it's not covered under a claim, right? If it's not considered a sudden...
Yeah, absolutely. And what you want to do is try to avoid making a claim at all costs. So what you need to do is your deferred maintenance. And the three areas that I'm seeing the water damage come into is we'll see splashboards behind either the kitchen, the sink, or in the bathrooms, and they haven't fixed the grout. So water's got up underneath the grout, got into the drywall, starts rotting it out. You don't know there's a problem until it starts smelling or coming out another area. And when they go to investigate, if it has dry rot or it has mold, then it's probably not going to be covered. That's a leakage and seepage claim. The other two areas that we're going to see is coming into either a dishwasher that's been leaking behind that you don't know there's a problem. It could also happen from a shower pan where the diaphragm underneath the pan is starting to leak and you've got a small amount of water leaking into the side of the wall or to the downstairs. Those will be 2 or 3 primary areas that we're going to see water losses inside a house. The majority of them are prevented. It's just a matter of not wanting to do the work necessary and take care of the house, such as doing the grouting and your preferred maintenance so you don't have a problem later on.
Gotcha. Well, I know a lot of our claims have been pinhole leaks that are in the wall somewhere. You don't even know about it until the carpet starts showing that it's wet or that kind of thing. And those there's really no way to guard against that, is there, other than repiping?
I think it's a great argument, depending on how old your house is, that maybe you need to get a plumber that knows what they're doing. Because if you've got pinhole losses in your property into the pipes, at some point they're going to continue to happen more and more readily. So you'll be at a point that possibly your insurance company cancels you because you have too many claims. Mm-hmm. So either you're going to go and repipe the entire house, reroute it, but working with a qualified plumber and figuring out the best way of doing that that's most cost effective would be a good place to invest your money if you're going to be in the property long term.
Gotcha. Okay. I know nowadays we are up against more and more inspections every year when they get ready to renew their property, and some insurance, in fact, it seems like almost all insurance companies nowadays are doing an inspection on the property. So I know for apartment owners, we're making sure that we don't have any railings or handrails that have more than 4 inches apart. I think there's probably some other. Are there any other ones that you can say should be on a hit list that we make sure that?
Every company does a little bit different. So when I'm out doing an inspection for my company, the first thing when I walk on a property, I'm looking for
trip and falls or no? Risk.
First, I'm trying to look at Yahoo or Google where the darn place is, but you never find it.
Once you find it and you get out
Once
there.
I find it and get out
there.
there, the first thing I'm looking is pride of ownership. And I think it's similar if we're going to go on a job interview. And you may be the best candidate, but if you're not wearing the right shirt or the right suit and your shoes aren't polished, the likelihood of you getting the job are far less. I think inspectors are no different than people. When they show up, they're seeing if you're taking care of your property and do you care. You caring about your property probably increases the odds that you'll have less claims. Along with caring about your property and the ownership or the pride of ownership that goes into it, generally what's associated with that is deferred maintenance. So when I go out to a property and I'm looking at the paint on the eaves isn't there, the roof is in ill repair, those are deferred maintenance items that leads me further to believe that you don't care about your property. We're going to see more claims, if not today, but in the future. So we've got pride of ownership. We have deferred maintenance would be the second issue when I go out on an inspection that I'm looking for. The third one would be attractive nuisances. And attractive nuisances would be anywhere from somebody having tires in the corner that maybe a kid would go play in, all the way from a refrigerator that might be open in a downstairs tuck parking that somebody could get into. It could also be as simple as I went out to a property and they had a climbing wall on it. Really harmless, and everybody in the complex was using the climbing wall. But an insurance company doesn't want to take on that type of exposure if they don't have to. I think ultimately it's not about it being right or wrong. Every time you have a claim against you or a lawsuit, you're going to have to defend it. And defense costs money, so insurance companies typically don't want to get into the business of having to do defense, whether they win it or not. It's not cost effective.
That makes perfect sense. Okay. Chris, one of the other big expenses that we've had this year with a couple of apartment buildings have been mainline sewer stoppages that backed up into one or more units, which causes a huge problem. Now you've got to get the hazmat guys out there in their white suits. The tenants are displaced. We've got to clean it all up, and then a lot of times replace drywall, do a lot of extensive remodeling to the unit, which we wouldn't have had to do. So had we not had the mainline backup. So I've started to recommend that we get a company that would go out on an annual basis maybe and hydrojet out the line so that you can avoid those kinds of things. Do you recommend something like that?
So 30 years ago when I started, I didn't have any backup or sewer claims for at least the first 10 to 15 years. Fast forward, in the last 10 years, I've had at least 10 claims with a backup and sewer problem. I don't know if there's an issue with the main line. I don't know if our properties are getting older, but I can tell you it's on the rise. So if you ask me the question, is it better to be preventive on solving that problem or wait for it to happen, the obvious answer would be get it fixed while you can. When we have a backup of the main line, not only pushing water back, but we're also potentially pushing that fecal matter back up through the toilet, up through the shower, and then onto the hardwood floors, which then takes an extra element to come in and clean that out. I think it would certainly be more cost effective to try to handle that on the front. Some insurance companies cover that claim, a backup of sewers and drains, others don't. Some have endorsements, some don't. So you ultimately need to figure out if you have the coverage, and whether you have the coverage or not, being proactive is a better deal than reactive.
A lot of owners this year have approached me that their rates are going up, and they're going, Steve, let's shop these out here. And I'm telling them just about everybody's rates seem like they're going up. I mean, tell me what's the latest on that?
There seems to be a general trend in the last 3 years that cost of insurance are going up in general. And of course, it depends on where you're at, type of property you're trying to insure. But if you want to ask the question, is it more expensive today to insure that same property that was 3 years ago? Yeah, the answer is yes. Is it more difficult to place properties today than it was 3 years ago? Absolutely yes. The cost of doing business for the insurance companies has gone up in the state of California. So there's no one company that's immune from this issue. What I could tell you, you could certainly shop around and look for a better option. That would be a wise idea. But possibly sit down with your insurance agent. Look for opportunities to raise deductibles, maybe lower some coverage or move some coverage around for the time being in order to try to control cost would be the best answer I could give you.
What other tips might you have for some of the people watching right here that we haven't touched on already?
I think ultimately it's about setting expectations. In the old days when I first became an agent, people looked at their homeowner's coverage almost as a maintenance plan. They would make every claim possible that they could, And as time has gone on and as costs have gone up and as policies have changed, where there's incentives and disincentives in the policy to make a claim or not, you might lose your claims free discount, you may lose your coverage, and then it puts you in the open market again. So what I would tell the client in today's market is your expectations need to be that your insurance policy is for catastrophes only. It's not for nuisances. If you think it's going to become a nuisance policy, then you're going to pay more premium and you're possibly going to jeopardize you losing that contract. If you turn it into a catastrophic policy and cover for the big issues you can't afford to lose money on, you'll probably be a lot happier in today's market. Not only will it meet your expectations, you can possibly lower the cost of your insurance by increasing your deductible.
Right now, I tell owners that they need to have a minimum of $2 million worth of coverage just because it's so expensive if you do get sued. Do you have a recommendation on that? A single family home versus a 16-unit apartment building, or what you need to have?
There's a rule of thumb in the market that we've been using. It's 2 to 1 on our assets. So if I'm worth $1 million, I would need $2 million in liability coverage. And I think that is a good start until we get to somebody that possibly has a $10 million asset issue or beyond. And then we need to take some different approaches, maybe setting up LLCs, working with an attorney to move things around to avoid liability, buying commercial liability umbrellas called CLUPs, or buying a personal liability umbrella called a PLUP would absolutely be a smart idea. What happens in tough economies, people are more likely to sue than in times of a good economy. And I think now with everything going on, it would behoove you to have the right amount of liability coverage. You can be morally right, but legally wrong. And I think some of my clients don't understand that they may be good people, but it doesn't matter in the eyes of the law, especially when it comes to real estate issues that you can't control everything, or property management issues, you can't control everything. You never know what judge you can get in front of. So certainly by buying coverage would take that problem and pass it on to the insurance company. In some cases, you have a paid attorney waiting in the wings to defend you, and should you lose, you've got X number of dollars to back you up. Absolutely. Liability coverage is your number one problem that you have. The more you own, the more likelihood you're going to have somebody try to sue you and take that away from you. And buying liability coverage would be a good way of trying to avoid those problems.
So I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in today, and I'd also like to thank Chris so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure having you here. We've known each other for a long time. Hopefully people got some good information out of that. If you click subscribe at the bottom, or give us a like there, I will also have some information in the links below on how you can get a hold of Chris if you'd like to get some more information or speak to him directly about insurance policies. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next Property Management Insider.